Okay, we are streaming again. And the channel is live again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Watching 100 Movies. I'm Christiana Ellis,
And I'm Mike Bettine.
and only if you are watching us live are you one of the lucky individuals who will get to see the original introduction to this episode. But if that's not you, don't worry. It wasn't anything special. We're going to recover the basics, which is to say, it's been just over 2 years since we originally finished the AFI list. We've watched 63 new movies since then, so now we're going to put them on the list.
Yep,
That's much more concise than my original version of that.
it is. It's weird. I can hear my audio through your speak. Like,
Is that not you couldn't before, but now you can?
correct.
I I didn't change
It might
any.
have stopped.
Okay, is it fine now?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So I was before we had our brief technical glitch just talking about the current color code that we have on this list, but I was also going to ask you. I don't know that it's especially appealing visually. How are you attached at all to preserving the history of whether a movie was in its original spot where we put it, or if we moved it up or moved it down? Do we need to preserve that visually?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, in that context,
All
then
subjective anyway.
yes. I think we have a couple. The whole idea of adding the movies that we've talked about since the list is something that it looks like we did in the first couple of post list episodes already, but we didn't stick to that. And so we have some of them that are going to be kind of on there already and some that are not. But I think what we're going to just do is we're going to talk about all the ones that weren't on the original AFI list. And if we put them on there in a different spot than it is now, that's fine. But I'm also going to go ahead and blank out these different colors. If that makes sense to you.
Yep.
Okay. So, this list, of course, is the AFI's top 100 American films list, even though the whole American film element of it has always been a little bit wonky because, you have a movie made in England by, like how, how do you decide whether it's an American film or not? But that's not necessarily critical to discuss right now. But that was this original list. We have shown on the screen right now my list and your list, and then just one column over. If I can get it to, I actually don't here. I can do it like this. There's the original AFI's list. So like their version, all of the American Film Institute and where they put things. And so um, before we just go on to too many tangents, let's just do a quick review of the movies that we're adding that we're talking about now, which we can see right here. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit here just to make these a little more legible when we're just looking at the one column. So early on, we were, just we would pick kind of a theme, and then just each of us pick a movie, and then just move on. But we did Gladiator and Groundhog. Okay, I don't have a good format for the discussion here. Do you want to let's just mercenary this, just brute force?
Yep.
We're going to go through and look at each one and say, "Oops, where does it go on the list?" Rather than me trying
Yes.
to come up with some uh, museum tourist content. All right. So uh, let's do them two at a time though, like we did in the episode. So Gladiator and Groundhog Day are the two movies that we did in our first post list episode, and I think those are movies that we actually had already included and put on the list at that time that we did them.
Yes.
And so uh, it does occur to me that the one downside of me deleting the coloring is that it doesn't highlight which ones were the new ones anymore, but that's okay. So it looks like I put Gladiator at 85, and Groundhog Day I'm pretty sure I had pretty high. Um, let's see. You know what?
And I had Groundhog Day at 81
Mm-hmm,
and Gladiator at 75. So I put both of those on the list, but just in the lower quarter.
mm-hmm. Groundhog Day, there we are. I had it at 24, and so I think I don't know. I feel maybe a little bit inclined to like if I were going to move it anywhere, I might even move it up, but I think I'll just leave it there for now. So, Groundhog Day placed in between, in that first top quarter for me, but you've got them both in the bottom quarter. All right.
Yeah, which I just think that's like funny because a lot of times when we did this, we didn't think about it in that context. It was like, hey, what movies is it better than?
Yeah. Well,
What
that's
movies
kind of
is
was
it
the
below?
easiest. You kind
But
of scan the list until you find one that's like, I think it's better than that one. Um,
yeah, but I'm saying going back now and looking at it, like you're saying that Groundhog Day is one of the top 25 best movies ever, and that's fine. It's just
mhm.
that's just a different way to think about it,
Right.
right?
Well, and it does just come back to a little bit of what I skipped past in introducing the episode this time, which is just the sense of how do you decide what metric to use when ranking movies? It's a difficult thing to decide um,
Yeah, it is
because
because like while I have Gladiator 75th, I would probably choose to watch it if I had to pair it against a movie like the other 74 movies and say which one would you rather watch right now. This is just a guess, and right, it's probably there's probably 50 of them that I would choose Gladiator over. Not to say I don't think they're more important or they're better or whatever reason they're on the list higher. I'm not saying it should be higher, but if I was building the list of the movies that I would choose to rewatch, it would go up more.
Mhm.
But that's not how I built the list, so that's why it doesn't go up,
Well,
right?
I think in a lot of respects we could look at it from that perspective of like what's a personal favorite, what's something that you would find like that you enjoy the headspace it puts you in, so you would tend to rewatch it more. Something that's an easier watch versus a harder watch, even if one might be more important. What's the most influential in a societal way or in a filmmaking way, or just all of these possible weights could come into factor in, but I think ultimately it just comes down to gut feeling, right? That's kind of, we are synthesizing in our brains different ways to weight all of those different factors and then just kind of putting them in arbitrarily. So, well, I guess not entirely arbitrarily, but in a way that the process is not transparent, right? It's happening almost in our subconscious, right? There's not an algorithm that we could print out the formula for.
Yeah. But just for example, like you're looking at like even just the top 10, like
Mm-hmm.
if I was told, hey, tonight you got to watch Gladiator or Citizen Kane, which one do you pick? I'd probably pick Gladiator, and but that doesn't mean I don't think Citizen Kane is a much better
Well,
movie,
and
right?
Citizen Kane is a fun example for me just right now because I recently picked up the Criterion collection of it and I have been devouring all of the special features. And so I've watched that movie either with commentary or without like four times over in the last week. So uh, I'm just specifically focused on that movie right now. And so inclined to leave it in that current spot, even though it's also true that ordinarily, at another time when I hadn't just bought a fancy new edition of it, that might not have been the case, right?
Right.
But of course, it was also a movie that I chose to buy the fancy new edition of. Anyway, so there's a lot of different factors that could weigh into it, but ultimately, I think when it comes down to it, Groundhog Day is a very meaningful movie for me. I think it's not only just an incredibly entertaining comedy, but I feel like it actually says something, and it's you know, uh, Bill Murray is a performer that I think merits inclusion on the list, and I think it's just a movie that is both personal favorite and maybe it's not necessarily one that you would say influences society as much as it influences me as a person because I think about it and it factors into the way I look at the world and that sort of thing. But yeah, so let's keep on going through the list. I we had next we had a Halloween episode where we talked about the movie Halloween, the John Carpenter 1978 movie, I think, and then Night of the Living Dead. And I believe these two are also ones that we had also already kind of placed in the list. Like I have Halloween pretty far down at 105, not because I don't think it's great, but I think just you know what I am actually gonna decide to move that up because I'd been thinking about it just recently and I want to move it up. But Night of the Living Dead, I think I already had I had that at 87. Um, and I don't know. I'm maybe it's just the season, but I'm in more of a how like a horror movie is important mood. I don't know. What about you?
So I had them as essentially like one and two off the list, and I, I don't know. It's hard because I agree with you. I think that they have, because I don't really think that we have the horror genre really represented on the list at all.
Not that much for
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
and I'm kind of scanning it real quick to see if there was
Like
something I mean, the
Psycho is
Sixth
on
Sense.
there. That would probably, you could maybe call that a thriller instead of horror, but it would probably be the closest.
Sixth
Otherwise,
Sense is probably
is
the
The Shining
closest.
on here?
Sixth Sense is probably the closest.
Yeah. I think The Shining is not on here if I remember correctly. I mean, Kubrick is
Yeah,
certainly represented, but just not that one specifically. Well, I
yeah.
am
The
going to move a couple. I'm going to move both of those up the list for me. I'm gonna move Night of the Living Dead up to 61, just above West Side Story, and then I'm gonna put Halloween um, at 76, just above below Spartacus, but above Duck Soup. So both of those moved up a bit, and then that'll that'll make me feel a little bit better about the horror representation. Do you have thoughts on where you want to move them, or if you want to move them?
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It felt like I was trying to like talk about something earlier, and
Oh,
maybe you
okay.
were just focused on moving your list, or I thought for a second you couldn't hear me, but it.
Well,
Um.
I didn't hear you say anything, so but maybe that was my own distraction. But in the meantime, let's go ahead
Yeah, that's what
and
I was saying. I think you were.
yeah,
I think you might have just been focused on moving the stuff on
it's
the
okay.
list and
So
just
let's
were
just move.
distracted.
Let's say what you're going to say then.
um. So I was saying that probably the purest horror representation is probably the Sixth Sense,
Hmm.
from the original list, because that is at least a scary movie, right?
Hmm.
And so I don't want to get that high, and I think that that makes me feel better at least about some representation on here, right?
Hmm.
So I will move. See, I don't even remember Sullivan's Travels, so I'll just put Halloween at 100. I don't
Yeah.
care about that dropping that movie off, and
I'll do
so
the
I'm
moving
thinking of this
if
a place of I'm like actually replacing movies on the list. That's how I'm doing this,
okay.
as opposed to shifting things.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, but then so you
so
like
when I move Night of the Living Dead, the movie I'm going to move it to, you're going to drop that down to like I don't really consider the rankings below 100, honestly.
okay.
Um,
I mean, I think
but
that's kind of part of what we're doing, but you, if you want
But
to put it all the way, any of these that you want to move all the way down is fine.
yeah, yes, I'm going to choose to replace a movie on the list with it, but I'm not going to pick like, oh, the movie I replaced needs to be at 106 instead of 105. I don't. That
Hmm.
doesn't matter as much to me.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm honestly going to replace. Like, I'm not going to put it super high up, but I am going to replace Sophie's Choice.
Okay.
I I remember that movie. I mean, that movie is it was better than I expected it to be when we left it on the list the first time, but it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't resonate enough with me. I don't feel like it's important enough anymore to be on the list. That's just my personal opinion. So,
All right. Well, so I think I'm not thinking of this as trying to find the new version of the top 100 so much as let's go ahead and have a list that includes all of the movies we've talked about.
well, your list can be your list, and mine will be mine.
Well, all right. So if you want me to just delete Sophie's Choice so that it is not ranked at all, I will do that.
No, no, I think it's fine to leave it in there, but I consider basically 101 to 110 as kind of a soup right now.
Okay. Well, but it was at 93 and now instead of being at 94 cuz you put Night of the Living Dead there, you've moved it all the way down. To well, like I put it in the same spot that Night of the Living Dead had been, but I can put it at all the way at the
Yes,
bottom.
it's in my important movies, but plus 100 category. That's how I'm
All right,
considering it.
fair enough. Okay. So, right now you've got Night of the Living Dead then at 93 and Halloween at 100.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's correct. All right.
So next we
So,
did an animated episode, and the movies we selected were Spirited Away and Coco. And I believe I have both of those relatively high. I have Spirited Away at 37, and then Coco actually higher at 29. Um, it's interesting because I really love Spirited Away, and in some ways I almost think of it as being more important, but Coco is just so good in its specific way.
yeah, and I think I want to move Coco up
Hmm.
to
Currently, you have it at 50.
yeah, and so this is where it's hard because it's I think I feel now that I've started having this sort of other lens of like, hey, this is in my it's probably in my top 25 movies,
Hmm.
but where it would fall, I would say would probably be between 20 and 25, but I'm having trouble deciding which of these movies is it better than.
Sure.
I'll probably put it at 22 right below Lord of the Rings. And then now you can
Okay.
just shift everything since it's still on the list, so everything can just
Right. Yep.
drop a spot from
Hmm.
22 to 23 to 50.
Yeah. All right. So Coco goes up to 22. And then you
Yeah,
had Spirited Away, I think you had lower, right?
it's in my plus 100. Yeah,
Okay.
it
Which is,
and
I
I
mean,
still
that's.
feel comfortable with it there, right? Like I think it's in that hey, should be represented
Hmm.
in my plus 100, but it's not enough to be in the top 100.
Fair enough.
So,
All right. I feel like I love Coco a lot, but I feel weird. You know what? I'm just going to leave it just to avoid spending a lot of time on any individual movie. I feel like Spirited Away doesn't feel bad to me in its current place, which is, I think, where did I put it? I just saw it there at 37. I feel like that feels an okay spot to me. Next, we did a heist episode where we did three different movies. We did Inside Man, Ocean's 11, and Out of Sight. And I'm pretty sure these movies we didn't actually add them to the list yet. So, uh, Inside Man,
no.
I like, but I didn't especially feel like I thought it was like meaningful or important in any way. So like there, without in any way suggesting that I don't think it's a good movie, I am going to put it near the bottom, I think. Actually, you know what? There's a couple of movies that I have down here, like Forrest Gump, for example. I think it's better than that. So I'll put it. Wow. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I'm going to put it after the General, but before Forrest Gump. Inside Man. Do you think it makes sense to do the one for each of us and then move on to the next one, or do you want? Should I do all
Yeah,
three
that's
and then
fine.
you do all three?
No, we can do it. Well, mine will be actually quick since I'm not ranking plus 100. I think Inside Man and Out of Sight are good, but they're not in my top 100.
Hmm.
So I'm really just debating what I want to do with Ocean's 11.
Right. I'm putting
Well, you
Inside
can.
Man, or excuse me, Out of Sight. Um, just like personal favorite factor, I'm going to put it um, up at 56 in between City Lights and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And that's not because it's necessarily as important, but just in terms of how much I like it. And do you have numbers for yours so far?
Um, well, this is kind of the. Now I understand the predicament I put myself in is yes, it's easier not to rank the 100 plus,
Hmm.
but then it means I can only put it in the top 100 if I plan to eliminate something.
Hmm.
So
I mean, this is a rule that you assigned to yourself, so you can change it up however you
I
like.
understand. Uh,
Well, I went ahead and assigned Ocean's 11 at 97.
yeah, I think so. I'm gonna go back to just ranking all of them, and so I'll fix my 100 plus later.
Okay.
But let's put Ocean's 11. It's probably eight. I put it at 86 after Ben Hur,
All
but
right.
above Last Picture Show.
Gotcha. Okay. Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
And so we still need to go ahead and place Out of Sight and Inside Man. I think you were saying both of those would be at in the
Yeah. So well, so
100
now that
plus.
I'm ranking these, put Inside Man after Halloween above Sullivan's Travels.
Okay.
So at 102 or whatever that ends up being.
Sure.
And
That was Inside Man or Out of Sight.
yeah.
Yeah, Inside Man.
And then so real quick move Spirited Away above Inside Man
Okay. There we go.
and put Out of Sight in its place
Okay.
right now. I'm still going to mess around with that,
I
but I'm not
see.
going to do it all at once. It's just each time I'll kind of move one or two of them until I get them all
Sure.
in the right spot.
Okay. So Spirited Away goes up to 102 above Inside Man, and then and Out of Sight goes
Yeah. And
there.
it's going to move up, but I'm going to move a couple at a time
Sure.
just
Sure.
as we keep moving.
That
Rather
works.
than waste everybody's time doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we then did a John Hughes episode where we talked about the Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink. Although both of those are shown here on the spreadsheet at the bottom, I don't know that either of us intended that that's actually where they go. Just because I have a hard time imagining that I would have put Pretty in Pink over Breakfast Club because I think Breakfast Club is
Correct.
better. Um, where do you think those two go on your list?
So I'm gonna put Breakfast Club at 54, and there's a reason why.
Okay.
Is that I think it's as important just 10 years later as American Graffiti, or whatever, how many years later it was.
Hmm.
Sorry, no, American Graffiti wasn't 1970. Yeah, it was about 10 years later. Um, but I think American Graffiti still kind of started that
Hmm.
genre, so it gets to be above it.
Hmm.
So they're kind of a duo in my list.
Sure. And then Pretty in Pink.
And so take the Pretty in Pink and Out of Sight together
Hmm.
and put them
Oops,
both
that's not what I meant to do.
um, after Sophie's Choice,
Okay.
above Tootsie.
All right. Uh, Above Tootsie. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, yeah. Just insert two there, and then just move them together with still Out of Sight being above Pretty in Pink.
I find that the Google Sheets does not always give me the level of mouse precision that I'm used to with others, but there we go. Okay, so I think I'm going to take uh, Breakfast Club and I'm going to put it up. You know what? I'm going to stick it between at 52 between Rear Window and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And then I'm going to take Pretty in Pink and put it, let's say, I'm going to put that after Inside Man before Forrest Gump. Like when I've selected this range of wanting to have it give me the little hand to move it, and there we go. Okay. So Breakfast Club goes up to 52 because I do think that that one does it feels formative to me. It's an interesting observation to potentially link that and American Graffiti in terms of what they're doing. Um, I could see that, in terms of like teenagers kind of trying to figure out what they're doing and what their lives are going to be. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Moving
and
right
the
along.
the sort of stereotyping the time,
Mm-hmm.
but not over stereotyping it to where it's ridiculous. Like it actually, like, it still has meaning.
Yeah.
Like the stereotypes matter. They actually tell the story better.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
I was thinking of Breakfast Club just last night because I was watching this Twitch stream, which was like a marathon of horror movies, and one of them was Man's Best Friend from 1993, which is a bonkers movie because it's an R-rated killer dog movie that, for much of its runtime, acts like it's G-rated, like Home Alone or something, because like the score feels like like a kids movie. Big chunks of it just feel like a kids movie, except then also you'll have a giant dog rip out the mailman's jugular. It's bizarre, but the reason I mention it is because it has Ali Sheedy in it as a reporter, and in the stream we were discussing that she is perhaps her character from Breakfast Club after she dumped Emilio Estevez and she cut off her hair but kept the makeup. Anyway, let's move on to the next movie. So the next movies on this list here are in just Mission Impossible, then James Bond movies, but we did compare and contrast with Mission Impossible franchise. All 1, 2, and 3, Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout, and then also 7 James Bond movies: Goldfinger, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, The Spy Who Loved Me, Never Say Never Again, License to Kill, GoldenEye, and Casino Royale. So, do you want to try to do those franchise by franchise, or probably, that's 13 movies to try to keep in our head all at once? So maybe just the Mission Impossible movies first?
yeah. Um,
I'm going to put the first
I
Mission Impossible movie actually relatively high, I think. Um, you know what? I'm actually right now just spotted Jaws there at 39, and I recently had the opportunity to go see the 3D conversion of that on the big screen over the summer, and it was so great that I'm going to move that one up also.
okay.
Um, I'm going to move Jaws up to 25.
This is my dogs. Hold on.
All right. And then I'm actually going to give the first Mission Impossible movie the Jaws' original spot. No, not quite there. Uh, I'm gonna move Rocky up one into where Jaws was, and then I'm gonna put the first Mission Impossible movie right after that. All right, and then I think I'm gonna put Mission Impossible 2 kind of not all the way at the bottom, but pretty low. You know what? I think I'm gonna go ahead and once again put it just above Forrest Gump, which feels like a pretty harsh commentary on Forrest Gump. But you know, we talked about that in our episode, didn't we? Um,
Yeah.
okay. Do you want me to just go ahead and go through them, or do you want to? Are you thinking about your own placements, or?
I mean, you can keep going if you've got them.
I think so. Mission Impossible 3 I think is also pretty good, but you know, once we start, you know, placing it with the best movies of all time, I don't know that it rises super high. I think I'm going to go ahead and put it after The Deer Hunter, but before High Noon at 93. Three. And then, gosh, Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation are hard to judge because Ghost Protocol is the one with the Burj Khalifa sequence, which may be the best single action sequence in the whole franchise. And but then also Rogue Nation introduces Ilsa Faust, who I think is a fantastic character. I think I'm actually going to put Ghost Protocol um, up at 80, but after Halloween, before Duck Soup, and then Rogue Nation a bit lower. Um, Rogue Nation is going to go after A Streetcar Named Desire, before Shane. Now, obviously, if we were making like a list to, you know, be some museum exhibit or whatever, we probably would not heavily represent the Mission Impossible movies. But you know, this is not how we're ranking things. Uh, oh, I just realized. Oh, never mind. Um, did I do that right, or did I? Oh, right, that's what it was. Ghost Protocol goes up here. And then this one is Rogue Nation. And then I think Fallout is going to go. Oh, did you add that, Ro?
Oh, I thought I could do just mine.
Unfortunately, I don't think so. You have to like grab it and drag them down, which is a little bit annoying. But and then I think I'm going to put Mission Impossible Fallout after Sunrise, but before Tootsie.
No, I can do it. So I can.
Okay.
I figured it out.
All
So I
right,
can
good.
work on my own. I can talk through them while
Sure.
you're done.
Okay, so I've got my placement then. So, first Mission Impossible was all the way up at where did I put that? At 41, 2 at 114, 3 at 94, Then Ghost Protocol at 80, Rogue Nation at 100, and Fallout at 97.
Ghost Protocol is the one with the Bridge Khalifa sequence, right?
Yes,
Okay.
the Brad Bird one.
Yes. So I put Mission Impossible at 80,
Mm-hmm.
below Pulp Fiction, His Girl Friday African Queen, above 12 Angry Men, Duck Soup, and Groundhog Day.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think just for starting the franchise, it's important.
Yeah.
And then I put Ghost Protocol at 93, After the Grapes of Wrath, above Cabaret, because that sequence, like, and that movie itself, like, not reinvented the franchise, but kind of reinvigorated it.
Well, it's interesting its place in the overall franchise because it's the one where it's obvious they started out assuming it was going to be Tom Cruise passing the torch to Jeremy Renner, and then Tom Cruise decided to just keep going, so they sort of rewrote it to not have the torch passing happen, and then it's just down it's both of them sort of.
Yes. And then I don't.
It's also the one where like nothing works, like all of their fancy gadgets keep screwing up on them.
Yeah, so it's a little different take on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then the rest of them I'm not going to put on the list.
All
Like
right,
I'm gonna
just
put.
all the way at
I
the
just
bottom.
don't even. Like, yeah, and these are. I mean, they're not even really all the way at the bottom. They're like not on the list. I mean, they're
Okay.
good. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they need to be a part of this from my perspective.
All right. Fair enough. So now we've got 7 James Bond movies to cover: Goldfinger, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, The Spy Who Loved Me, Never Say Never Again, License to Kill, GoldenEye, Casino Royale. Do you want to start with those?
Yeah, so I'm gonna put basically gonna just put Goldfinger and Casino Royale on the list.
Okay.
So for the same reason, not that I mean the franchise got reinvented a couple of times, but I think that the new modern direction that Casino Royale took
Mm-hmm.
it in with Daniel Craig was, to me at least, more significant than any of the other ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But Goldfinger is just, it's taking such a historic franchise and it's just such a good movie
Mm-hmm.
that fits in with the franchise and still has some of the silliness, but is still just delivers at such a high level. So I'm actually going to put that right at 50, after Titanic and above All the President's Men.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put Casino Royale at 64, after Goodfellas, but above the original West Side Story.
Okay. So when you do that, are you what are you selecting to do that instead of dragging stuff down the way I have been? So insert one
Uh,
row above or
inserts,
insert cell.
insert cell,
Okay, insert cell
and
and
then
shift
insert
down.
cell,
Okay,
shift
yeah, good.
down. Yep.
That looks like it'll be easier than the way I was doing it.
Yes,
Okay.
it was.
So Goldfinger at
And
50, Casino Royale at 64, and then everything else kind of what are you have any others that you
no,
want to
I
kind of
mean,
even assess?
I mean, if I'm ranking, I'll put Goldeneye, kind of in here in the like 110,
Mm-hmm.
and I will put uh, uh,
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do quick.
the rest. I'm just not going to put on there. I mean, they're fine, but I
Okay.
don't think they're list worthy.
All right.
Goldeneye was another one that it just has such a,
Yeah.
it's not as important as Casino Royale, but it did definitely took it in a new direction, and
It's
also has the, sort of the video game tangent
Mm-hmm.
tangential piece to it of like how important that video game was as a
Yeah,
accessible
yeah.
first person shooter. Um, so
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put I'm going to put Goldfinger. I'm going to put it in between Gold Rush and Bringing Up Baby at 85. Um, I think your logic holds pretty true for me in terms of like, the specific placement is one thing, but just in terms of like Goldfinger and Casino Royale being sort of the top two of those, and then GoldenEye, and then the others. Although I think I was really pleased with how much I enjoyed. Shoot, what was the Roger Moore one with the like the undersea base, and was that the
that's
spy?
that. I think that's Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was because it wasn't the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which was the Lazenby one, and then Never Say Never Again was the Connery return, old Connery, right?
Right, and it
Yeah,
was like I think that one was also the first non novel one.
right.
They wrote that separately, and I've always really enjoyed that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But watching it in this context again and comparing it to the other, it's not as good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun,
Yeah.
but
All right.
it's just
I'm
not as
gonna
good.
put
Spy Who Loved Me is cool because it's like it's not as good as Goldfinger, but it is like all of the things. I mean, it's why it's the one that Austin Powers basically like majority of what's in Austin Powers comes from Spy Who Loved Me
yeah.
because it is so like
I really
on
liked all
point.
that about it, honestly. So
Yeah.
I put Casino Royale at 105, just after Ocean's 11, and I think for representing the kind of cheesy, silly spy action in a way that I found that I really enjoyed, but didn't isn't really represented anywhere else on the list. You know what I mean? I am actually going to
Yeah.
put that one a bit higher. Um, Not as high as Goldfinger. I changed my mind after just saying I agreed with your logic. I then changed my mind. I'm going to put it
That's
after French Connection, above Sullivan's Travels. Do you really not remember Sullivan's Travels at all?
I don't.
That was the one with the rich filmmaker who had only made comedies, and then he was like, "Oh, I want to understand the plight of the poor people, so I'm going to pretend that I'm poor, so that I can
Oh yeah.
learn about the true drama of living." Uh,
Yeah, that's right. That was better than I thought.
I
But
I
still,
liked that it had the lesson at the end of him recognizing, you know what? Sometimes the people who are having the hardest time, what they actually want is not for rich people to make sad stories about them. They want something to make them laugh and get their mind off of things.
yep.
All right. So, and then I think GoldenEye, I'm going to put um, after, I'm going to put it in between Streetcar Named Desire and Rogue Nation. And then On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Never Say Never Again, License to Kill. I think I will put License to Kill above Never Say Never Again, but the three of those together, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave here at the bottom of
Yep.
this list. All right, cool. Making our way through here then. So I think the next episode that we did, we called Guilty Pleasures, and talked a little bit about what that kind of means. But the two movies are Deep Blue Sea and Xanadu. So uh, I think I I think Xanadu, as much as like the only thing that I really have like going for it, like in its defense, is just how much I just personally really enjoy the aesthetic of it and have really pleasant memories of my first viewing of it. I feel like that's mostly what I have it has to offer here. But I look at this list, and there are definitely movies on here that I would rather watch Xanadu than that. And in fact, I think I'm going to put it right at 100, um, below Mission Impossible Fallout, but above Tootsie.
It's no secret to anybody who listened to that episode that you like Xanadu a lot better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't
That's fair. Yeah.
disparage your enjoyment of it by any means.
But it didn't
Just
work. It
not for
doesn't work
me.
for you. I get it.
Yeah. So I'm just not even going to worry about it. I
Sure.
wouldn't even have it. I'm just going to put it to show that I on the
Mm-hmm.
bottom, just to show that I acknowledge that that we watched it.
Yeah.
But it's yeah.
And then I think I'm going to take Deep Blue Sea and put it in between Pretty in Pink and Mission Impossible 2. No, I'm going to put above Pretty in Pink. Because it's an awful lot of fun, but it's also kind of, you know, it's just a fun sort of action movie.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do that too. Like put it like in my mix in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting it below GoldenEye and above Best Years of Our Lives at 111.
All right. Okay. And so, moving on, we did we did an episode featuring Seven Samurai and the Magnificent Seven on the basis that, one is a remake of the other, but with a very different aesthetic. I thought that was that's a neat idea. I feel like maybe we ought to do another episode kind of like that sometime. Um, all right. So, do you have thoughts where you want to put them?
So Seven Samurai is probably the only reason it probably wasn't on here is because it's can't be considered an American film by
Right.
any stretch.
No.
Um, but it's good.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it at 91 after Ocean's 11 and
All
above the
right.
Last Picture Show. So I mean, it's good, but it's
Mhm.
not like.
Mhm.
And then the Magnificent Seven. I'm gonna just put a few spots higher.
Oh, interesting. I mean, completely fair. It's a great movie. I was surprised.
Yeah, and this is why I'm having trouble remembering because I haven't watched High Noon enough.
Hmm.
Like it's kind of in that area, but I can't decide if it's above or below that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it
When I
below
think of High
that.
Noon, the thing that keeps coming to mind for me is that one song that it just keeps playing over and over, and it's like the whole score is just bits and pieces of this one song, which is good in some spots and not as good in other spots.
Yeah.
um,
So yeah, I'm gonna put it just above. It's gonna go a little bit below that. It's gonna go just above um, Ben Hur below on the waterfront,
all
which is
right,
just one more.
cool. I'm gonna put Seven Samurai higher. I'm gonna put it. I'm going to put it at 58 after City Lights, but before Out of Sight. Um, is it the Seven Samurai or just Seven Samurai? I can't remember. Anyway,
The
it
way
doesn't.
you wrote it was Seven Samurai, but I don't know if you just shorthanded it in the other
Yeah,
document or not.
I don't remember, and I'm not going to look it up. I think I'm going to put Magnificent Seven lower, but not as just I was only just interested that you put that one higher than Seven Samurai. but I suppose it's all kind of subjective too. You know, it's like that one is just kind of Western. There's a lot of classic stuff in there. Um, I'm going to put Magnificent Seven after Goldfinger before bringing up Baby at 87.
Yep.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. Next, I think what we did for this episode, the movies are Notorious and The Departed, and I think what the theme there was directors who have other movies on the list, but what's the movie that's not on the list that should be?
Correct. Yeah. So people who are already so well represented that maybe
Mm-hmm.
this movie just didn't make the cut because
Right.
politically it's like, hey, they already got enough,
Right.
right?
Well, and in
That's
particular, you know, both Scorsese and Hitchcock have made so many great movies that you could have two different people list their top five and have no overlap, right? It's like they've made that many that might be somebody's favorite.
yes.
Notorious though is pretty high for me. Like that, I think is one of my favorite Hitchcock movies, and like looking at right now the highest one of those highest Hitchcock on the list for my list is Psycho at 18, which I think is partly there on the basis of just being so kind of important in a societal way as opposed to just like how much I like it as a movie, because I
Yep.
think I like Notorious more than Psycho, but you can't say that it was as influential, right? I think I'm going to put Notorious at 27 after Singing in the Rain, but before To Kill a Mockingbird. Because I like Notorious an awful lot. Um, and then I think The Departed for me is going, considerably lower. It's very good, but not kind of at the same level as some of these others for me. So I think I'm going to put that at 105 after Tootsie before A Streetcar Named Desire.
Nice. So I put Notorious in the exact same place that you did.
Oh,
Um, it just happened to be I was looking at you inserting it, and it just kind of felt right. That
yeah,
was where it should go on my list too.
nice.
And Departed. So I'm trying to find. So okay, the next down the list a little bit. Goodfellas, better than it. Is there another Scorsese down here somewhere?
We have Taxi Driver on here, right? And then,
Taxi Driver's up high though,
yeah.
and it's fine
Well,
with
I'm
me.
just trying to think of what are the other Scorsese movies on the list. I think it's Goodfellas and
Raging
it's
Bull and Taxi Driver for sure.
oh yeah, Raging Bull.
Uh, but I think the only other one down here. So I need to get it. I'm going to have it below Goodfellas. So let's see where it's going to go.
You've got Goodfellas at 64.
Yeah, so I'm right there. I was kind of scrolling around through there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just below the Maltese Falcon for me
All
at
right,
76.
respectable.
I really like The Departed.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great movie.
Here-
I'm no shade on The Departed from me.
Yeah, I mean the only things downside to it is just there's just some stuff where you have to take a little bit of a leap and
Yeah.
say, would he really be able to get away with this? But
Well,
it's like, but it buys in so full
yeah.
force that you just kind of you just get swept in the wave, right?
I
And
also
that I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I think sometimes too with a filmmaker as respected as Scorsese, who has so many other home runs, um, I feel like it's less ambitious than some of his other movies. You know what I mean? Like the plot is
Mhm.
complicated, but I don't know that it's really saying anything interesting compared to say Goodfellas or Taxi Driver or Raging Bull for that matter, right?
Yeah, that's why I have it like
Like,
significantly below
hmm
those. But
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
agree with what you're saying,
Hmm.
and but it's just so much,
Oh,
so well done.
it's yes,
Yeah.
it is uh it is not necessarily as ambitious, but certainly connects. In it achieves what it was trying to do for sure. All
Yeah.
right. The next. Hmm? Were
No,
you
I was
okay?
just going to keep talking about, but we don't need to.
Okay.
That's the whole,
So
the
the
point is to
next
move on
two.
because we're only halfway through and
Yeah.
we've been going for an hour or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I think yeah. So we can try to keep moving. So the next episode we had three, which was The Great Escape, Starship Troopers, and The Hurt Locker, and I do not remember how we ended up with those three in common. Like what
So
was our theme for that? War movies, maybe?
war movies.
That's
Yeah,
what it
like I
was.
had wanted to do war movies and I said The Hurt Locker was the best.
Mm-hmm.
You chose Starship Troopers,
Yeah.
which is technically a war movie. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you kind of slid some sci-fi war in there, but it
Yeah.
was your choice.
I,
And I just thought The Great Escape is, while it's a war movie, it was one I
mm-hmm.
don't know if you had seen, and maybe that's why
No,
I
I had
said we need to.
definitely seen it, but I think what we were looking for is trying to have like a spectrum of different ways that
Yeah,
war is presented.
right. So there's the comedic one, the sci-fi one, and the realism gritty
Mm-hmm.
one. That's what I think. Yeah, that's what we settled on.
Wait,
Yeah,
which is the comedic one?
Great Escape is a black comedy, I would say.
I guess I don't know. I think it has plenty of humor. I wouldn't have called it a comedy, but I suppose that's fair. I was just surprised, like
I
the
mean,
comedic
as
one.
far as like a true war movie and doing it
Well,
as a
like
black
Starship
comedy, like it's
Troopers,
not a.
although it's also the sci-fi one, I mean, it's a satire. Like that's its whole thing.
Yes, I should have said black comedy because that probably would have
Okay, it's
had
fine.
less of
I
a.
we don't need to split the hairs too much there. Um, I
And
think.
more epic, I
Oh,
guess,
sure.
also too. That maybe that was why we chose it.
Mm.
Was the sort of the more epic, longer form, multiple characters, that type
Well,
of
I
piece.
think
Yeah.
part of why we chose that one too is because it was still sort of very much in the vein of it's about World War II, and although war is depicted as like not not a fun thing, like bad things happen in war, it was still very much in the vein of but that was the good war, right? That was the one that was the right thing to do, and it's not you don't have to feel morally gray about what side we're on or what the people are doing and that sort of thing, right? It was more
Yep.
straightforward in that respect. I think that's why we picked it, other than just it being a good movie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think of those three, I'm actually going to put Starship Troopers the highest, just because I appreciate the satire of that more and more every year. Um, I'm going to put Starship Troopers um, at 78 after Sound of Music, but before Grapes of Wrath. Although another one of the movie podcasts I listened to ended up saying if you were going to pick just one Paul Verhoeven movie to be representative of his entire career, do you pick RoboCop or do you pick Starship Troopers? We haven't talked about RoboCop, so it's not being placed here, but that's a tough decision for me. Or is there another one you would pick?
I thought he did Total Recall also.
He did, yeah, he did. I just was that one you would pick over RoboCop or Starship Troopers?
I think it should be in the conversation.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know which one I would pick, but I think that one.
I rewatched it recently. It's very good.
Yeah, and it has a different like I don't say different cultural significance. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
has sort of the same thing as the as RoboCop, but almost more like I feel like it was more mainstream, but still was true to like his form of movie,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that gritty, not. I mean, it is kind of gruesome, but like
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
don't know.
there's an
It's
awful lot
RoboCop.
of held shots on the special effects prosthetic of their eyes and tongue bugging out because they're in vacuum. I mean, it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, and there's like, I mean, even just some of the things where like he breaks out of the thing and like
Yeah.
stabs somebody in the side of the head with
It's
the
about as
thing. Like
gruesome as
those
you can
things are
get
kind of
without being explicitly a horror movie.
Right, and those things were kind of unheard of at that time,
Hmm.
and it was a mainstream movie with mainstream cast and like, yeah. So either way,
Yeah, no, I mean it's
it's
very
not what
also
we're
very good.
discussing.
Any
Maybe
case,
RoboCop and Total
that's a
Recall should be our
tangent
next
that
two.
maybe yeah we talk about on another episode. So I put Great
I mean,
Escape
I'm
at
willing to just go
90.
ahead and say if you want to do RoboCop and Total Recall as our next two and just move on from like we need something for the next
Sure,
two to watch.
let's just have those be the ones.
Let's do it, and
All
then we
right.
can discuss all of that. All right.
Okay, great. Now we've decided. So I put Great Escape at 90 after Magnificent Seven before bringing up Baby. And The Hurt Locker, I have mixed feelings about it. I think it does a lot of things really well, but I don't know. When I rewatched it the last time, it didn't age as well as I expected for me personally, which doesn't make it bad. It just makes it further down the list for me. I'm going to put it at 112 after Shane before the Philadelphia story. I actually rewatched both that and Zero Dark 30 and was surprised because I was kind of thinking to myself, Zero Dark 30 was good, but Hurt Locker was great. And then when I rewatched them, it flipped the opinions in my brain for whatever reason.
The last half hour of Zero Dark 30 is some of the best sequence, like the Bin Laden raid
Hmm.
from just a pure like movie making war, like just modern Navy SEALs at night,
Hmm.
important mission, like just the way that that kind of comes together, it's pretty good.
Hmm.
Like I could just watch that half hour and just, I mean, it blows me away. And then obviously the buildup is great,
Hmm.
but that part is one of the best sequences in a war movie. Um, I put Starship Troopers at 119.
Hmm.
It just doesn't as I mean it's fine, but it
Hmm.
just wasn't as impactful to me. And
Sure.
then I have where did I just put it? Great Escape is at 79 below Shane and above Bringing Up Baby and Gladiator.
Hmm.
Notably below Saving Private Ryan because I still think that's better.
Hmm. Yeah, I have Saving Private Ryan up at 69, so it's still the highest of those for me too.
And then I agree with you. I still think The Hurt Locker is a very good movie, but it doesn't age as well. So I'm putting it at 101.
Hmm. I think what I
Um,
found when I rewatched it is that looking back, it feels too much like it's really just a character study about this one unusual guy rather than saying something larger about war or that
what
war
war does
or
to you?
society or
Yeah.
whatever. It feels more like this is one particular guy who is atypical in a number of ways, and let's follow him around, which is not bad. It's not uninteresting, but it just feels a little bit more limited in hindsight that way.
Yeah, and what I would say, what I think is interesting, because I've just rewatched that and American Sniper.
Hmm.
American Sniper was billed and designed to be more like what you're describing
Mm-hmm.
of a character study of an unusual guy, but I feel like it actually tells a bigger story about what war can do to a person
Hmm.
as whereas the Hurt Locker becomes more of the unique guy character study. Like obviously it's an interesting movie in American Sniper because he's a unique individual, but how he ends up because of his unique talent and what he has to see because of it
Mm-hmm.
and what it does to him mentally and emotionally is probably more relevant,
Mm-hmm.
right? In my opinion, after having seen it again.
So,
But you have to see through that because the movie is designed to be like this guy's a superhero, but even even superheroes can get flaw. Like sometimes that's the flaw, right? Like the
yeah.
fact that he's so good at sniping also means he's the most intimate at killing, right? And that's what it's trying to say. But I don't know. Anyway,
So
it's a
I don't
tangent.
want to like cut you off, except that just you're right that we kind of were targeting a runtime, and we're way behind schedule as far as that goes. But so let's try to keep moving. Um,
Yeah,
so
my
we did a
dogs are
Richard
ready.
Donner. Hmm. I'm
And my
sorry.
dogs are
Yeah.
My dogs are ready and waiting for me at the groomer. So
Okay, so let's try to move quickly then. So we did a Richard Donner episode where we talked about Superman, The Goonies, and Lethal Weapon. I feel like we don't have any other superhero movie on the list, do we? I don't think there's a single other one. I think Superman. We could validly discuss whether or not it is the best superhero movie. I don't think it probably is, but I think it is a very good one and important, and I love it. So I'm going to put it pretty high, actually. I'm going to put it at 21 after Butch Cassidy and before King Kong. Superman. Um, the Goonies, I love an awful lot, but it's also messy for sure. That one feels much more like personal fave as opposed to, broader um, relevance. So I think I'm going to put that at 117 after Casino Royale. And then Lethal Weapon is, I think, good and well done for what it is, but it's not my favorite kind of movie. So I'm going to actually put it, I don't know, not all the way at the bottom, but pretty close. I'm going to put it after Night at the Opera. How about you?
so I don't care about superhero movies as like the way that you do,
Sure.
and it doesn't. It's my list, so I get to not put them on if I don't want them
Fair.
on. So I know that there's a time and place for them, and I
Mm-hmm.
agree that they probably should be represented, but they're not, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to do it with my choice
Hey,
here.
hey,
So
that is allowed.
Superman,
You're one of those
yeah, Superman and
contrarians who
Lethal
doesn't
Weapon.
watch the MCU movies. I'm
Yeah,
teasing, of course.
Superman and Lethal Weapon. I just left at the bottom.
All right.
Uh, the Goonies I put at 123,
Nice.
just above Pretty in Pink.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's slightly better. I mean, it's a little better than that. Little,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some messy parts of Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
I- yeah. So
All right. So then our next episode ostensibly was going to be all about comedies, but I think we found when we rewatched Big Trouble in Little China that it's great, but maybe comedy is not the best primary adjective for it. But then also The Big Lebowski, which probably is, and The Big Lebowski, and both of those movies have other movies from those filmmakers on the list, but they're both good. So where do you want to put those two?
oh, I mean, I'm probably gonna put Big Trouble in Little China in that neighborhood with like Goldeneye and Deep Blue Sea. Like I'm not
Mm.
trying to tie it to those exactly, but
Sure.
it's
No, I
just
get
kind
it.
of
Yeah, in the
there
sense like it's fun to
as I'm.
watch, but it's not necessarily doing anything more important.
Yeah, and so it just kind of sits in that space. And then what's the other one is Big Lebowski. I mean that one I'm gonna move up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I think for its time, it's as important as like a duck soup and
Mm-hmm.
it's, yeah, it's probably above The Departed. Put it above Deer Hunter, below French Connection at 70.
Nice. I'm putting it a little bit lower than that, at 97, after The Spy Who Loved Me. And then I put Big Trouble in Little China. Where did I just put it? I just typed it in at 108 after Xanadu. Um, and we could talk more about that, but let's move on to the next movies instead. We did sports movies where you picked Remember the Titans and I picked A League of Their Own. I think these are the first time we're putting sports movies on the list as well. I don't think we have any. Well, Rocky probably counts as a sports movie.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think there are any others unless we want to count the football game in MASH.
Or Raging Bull. I mean, there's,
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess
I guess.
there.
Yeah. I always forget about Raging Bull. I've got a mental blind spot there for some reason. Um, okay. So I think I'm putting A League of Their Own at like I'm going to put it at 92 after The Great Escape but before Bringing Up Baby. And I'm going to put Remember the Titans at 115 after Mission Impossible Rogue Nation before Shane. How about you?
So I have League of Their Own at 130, which is essentially like the bottom of like where I feel like they should be on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Because the things below that are like not really on the list.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put Remember the Titans at also 115, below Spirited Away and above Inside Man. I didn't even
Okay.
mean to do that.
Just by coincidence, we both placed it at the same spot.
Yep.
That's fun. All right. So then.
You start with the next ones. I have to go put the dog's blankets in the dryer so that they're
Okay.
dry when they get home. It's
All
just
right.
there, so I can hear.
So the next episode we did was a Christmas episode, and we picked 3 Christmas movies that we again wanted to have a sort of spectrum of the way Christmas is presented. So we had Miracle on 34th Street, A Christmas Story, and Die Hard. So, boy, there's some good movies in that list. So Die Hard, I feel like that goes pretty high for me. It's just, it's one of those perennially, infinitely rewatchable movies. I don't know that, like, I feel like it's really mostly a joke that it's a Christmas movie. Not that it's not a Christmas movie, just that it's not really about that. That's not what makes it good or interesting. But I think I'm going to put that at 46 after The Graduate, before Vertigo. Miracle on 34th Street. I'm gonna put. I'm gonna put that. It's gonna be relatively low. I'm gonna put that at 112, just above The Departed. It's a very charming little movie, but kind of slight ultimately. And then A Christmas Story is another one of those where, like, I feel like I have it constantly running on repeat in the deeper recesses of my brain. I've got it practically memorized. It's, one of those favorites from when I was a kid, but I don't know that it necessarily has a lot going for it. It's like made of pure nostalgia from top to bottom, like on every layer of it. It's all about nostalgia, because like even within the story, it's about the nostalgia of an older Ralphie remembering his childhood Christmas, and then it's made at a time where it's remembering this, again, that same time period. But then now I have nostalgia for when I watched it when I was a kid and it was new. So there's a lot of nostalgia going on there in layers. But I'm gonna put it at 95 after Bringing Up Baby, but above Platoon. You ready to rank Miracle on 34th Street, A Christmas Story, and Die Hard?
So the only one I missed, where did you put Miracle on 34th Street?
Relatively low. I put it at like where was it? 113.
Got it. Okay.
Charming, but ultimately kind of light, not very substantial.
I agree with that. I'm putting it at 124.
Mhm.
I'm putting A Christmas Story at like 103. So a little higher. And I guess
Mhm.
103 when you're down now that we have like 150 in here
Yeah.
is not as bad.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? Because when we were doing just the top 100, it's the idea of something being 102 is like, oh, that's the worst one. But now turns out that
exactly.
there's a
And
lot of good
then
movies in the world.
Die Hard is going to go at 66 for me.
All right. I don't know if you heard, but it cracked the top 50 for me. I put it at
I did.
46.
Yeah. That was when I first moved the blankets over, but then I had to
Mm-hmm.
like wipe. They generated so much hair in the washer that I had to like clean it out.
Dog hair. That's
Oh, hair.
it's a
Do corgis shed? Just quick.
yes, a lot.
Okay. Then you know.
Okay, so moving on. You know what? Love Actually was also in our Christmas episode, I think. So
Yeah, that's gonna go in my. I enjoy watching it, but it's not a great. It's not the best
yeah,
movie to me.
I'm putting it lowish, like at I'm gonna put it at 139.
Yeah, I've got it at 134.
Yeah, like it does some
I
interesting
probably
things
like it
relatively
more than
well,
you do.
but parts of it just feel um,
Yup.
like cotton candy tastes good, but there's nothing really of substance in it. That's what it feels like to me. Anyway, we then did a Robert Zemeckis movie theme episode. We talked about the Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
So Back to the Future goes on the list for me,
Mm-hmm.
like in a decent spot.
Yep.
Um,
What are you thinking?
I, and it's the more I think about it, it's probably. I mean, it's right out. I want to put it at 50, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put it at Titanic. So
All right.
I could move Titanic, I guess, but I'm not going to worry
Yeah.
about it. So I'm just going to drop it below.
That's higher than I guessed, but only just like in terms of where I guessed that you would put it. I certainly love it deeply as well. I'm thinking in the same general range. I
I
think
mean,
the
it just crosses so many genres,
oh
right? Like
yeah,
it's sci-fi, it's comedy, it's 80s, like it's all of those things. And then you can start going. I'm just gonna. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna drop Roger Rabbit, and he's like 120 somewhere. So go ahead.
okay. I'm putting Back to the Future a little lower than you did, but not too much. 55 after Fellowship of the Ring, but above Rear Window. And then Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I am also putting lower than that, but higher than the 120s. I think I'm going to put Who Framed Roger Rabbit at 74, right after Silence of the Lambs and before Godfather Part 2.
Well,
Because
that it is your list,
yeah.
so I'll let you.
All right. And so then I believe was our David Lean episode where we decided to pick David Lean movies that weren't on the list and that, or at least I had not seen any of them. I think you had seen Dr. Zhivago, but not the other two, if I remember right.
Correct. That's
So
correct.
we have Dr. Zhivago and then his two Dickens adaptations, Great Expectations and Oliver Twist. I think I'm going to put Dr. Zhivago at 98 after A Christmas Story, but before Platoon. And I think the other two are going to be like lower. So let's see. I think I liked the Great Expectations a bit more than the. I'm going to put Great Expectations at 118 after The Departed, before A Streetcar Named Desire. And then Oliver Twist at 126 after Philadelphia Story, but before Ocean's 11. How about you?
So I had um, same thing, Great Expectations above Oliver Twist. I just put them at 133 and 134
Mm-hmm.
below the Goonies. And then I put Dr. Zhivago a little bit higher at 90
Okay.
after 12 Angry Men, but above Duck Soup.
All right. Great. And then we did our Sam Raimi episode with Evil Dead 2, A Simple Plan, and Spider Man 2, which is interesting. Just that when we talked about Superman, I was saying, we didn't have any superhero movies on the list. Is it the best one? Maybe not. But then, of course, now we're putting Spider Man 2 on the list, which I'm going to put pretty high because, again, I really like superhero movies. And I think that one is one of the best ones. Do you want to go first in general, though? We've kind of been taking turns.
Yeah, mine's easy. I honestly, I mean, I like these movies, but
Mm-hmm.
I they're at the they're not really on the list for me. Like they're just not.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do enough of the things that the other like Evil Dead 2 doesn't do enough of the things the other horror movies did that I wanted on here. Simple Plan, there's much better thrillers. It's interesting. Um, and I really like the author of the story, but I think it's a better story than it is a movie. And I'm just not putting superhero movies on. So there we go.
Evil Dead 2 is representative in our horror genre again, in terms of being represented, but it's now more represented than it was. I put Spider-Man 2 pretty high, like 18. I love that movie. So I'm going to leave it there. Evil Dead 2 is also, I think, going to be relatively high for me. I'm going to put it at 36 after The Godfather, before Sunset Boulevard. And then A Simple Plan, I'm going to put that lower because I think it's great, but it's also not necessarily doing something that other movies haven't also done. So I'm going to put that one. I'm going to put that one at uh, 118, just above Miracle on 34th Street. All right. We're getting close now. We're now into our Tom Cruise series. Do we want to do
Yeah,
all of those in one go?
I can because I, well, I mean, I think I'm only going to give any kind of real relevance to Rain Man, A Few Good Men, and Minority Report.
Mm,
The other ones are good, but they're going to fall in that lower piece, where
sure.
it's like whatever, it's going to end up in the 110 to 130 somewhere, except Cocktail, which isn't going to go on the list. I think it was interesting in the Tom Cruise
Yeah.
representation, but it's not that great a
Yeah,
movie.
I'm putting
Um,
Cocktail at the very bottom of my list so far. Um, I think I think I'm maybe going to put Rain Man at 120, just after Miracle on 34th Street. Um, and then the A Few Good Men, Jerry Maguire, and Magnolia. Magnolia is a personal favorite. That one's going pretty high for me. Um, and not just because of Tom Cruise, of course, but that one's a whole big thing. Um, Magnolia is very high for me. It's like one of my all-time favorites. So I'm going to put it at number 9 after Apocalypse Now, before It's a Wonderful Life. which, you know, is heavily weighted for favorite territory, but boy, do I love that movie. And then, what was the other? A Few Good Men, Jerry Maguire. A Few Good Men is good and fun, but like not terribly special. I think I'm going to put that. I'm going to put it at 129, just above The Hurt Locker. And then Jerry Maguire. Don't have a lot of romantic comedies, or at least I guess we do. Maybe we do.
There's a lot of older ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that at like 60. After Rear Window, before Breakfast Club. And then for the Minority Report, Collateral, American Made. Minority Report, I'm going to keep pretty high too, relatively anyway. I'm going to maybe put that in 73, just after Unforgiven. But the other two going relatively further down. I think Collateral, I'm going to put just above A Simple Plan, where we just did that one. You know what? Actually, I take that back. I'm not going to put it that high. I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it just before Oliver Twist.
It's funny. I was just doing the same thing with that.
And then American Made. I'm going to put. I'm going to put it just after American Graffiti. But then the next two on the list are Cabaret and The General. I feel like I like those more than. You know what? I'm gonna put it just after those two then. There we go. So where'd you end up putting yours?
So I have. Let's just start at the bottom here. So I put American Made just above A League of Their Own and after Love Actually,
Mm-hmm.
which I may put it above Love Actually if I really wanted to think about it, but that's fine. Collateral is in between Great Expectations and Oliver Twist, but so above Oliver Twist.
Okay.
So that's at 138. And then next one I just put in here. Rain Man, I put at 108. This was another one where I was like, well, I feel like it's better than 108, but it's 108 out of
yeah
150 something. So, and then Cocktail was at the end for me. Few Good Men I put at 101, so higher than Rain Man. I liked it better.
Sure.
And then I need to put Jerry Maguire at 87 after His Girl Friday, but above The African Queen, kind of sandwiched in between a couple other romantic comedies that do something different. And Minority Report is going to be just after Gladiator at 85.
Nice. Okay. Did you get Magnolia on there?
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh, there we are. 119, looks like.
119. Yeah, it didn't do the same for me as it did for you. So
That's
better than King
fair.
Kong.
Like I said, for me, it is heavily weighted in the personal favorite category. All right. And so now we have caught up to just our most recent episode before this one, which is the Muppet movies, in particular, the Muppet movie, the original, and then Muppet Treasure Island and Muppets Most Wanted. I think I'm going to put the Muppet movie, the original, maybe up at 68 after Out of Sight. The other two farther down. Think Muppet Treasure Island maybe at like maybe put that one after Big Trouble in Little China. And then Muppets Most Wanted, like pretty much lower. I'm going to put that just after Deep Blue Sea at 152. All right.
I did not put any of them on my like top list.
Sure.
So they're uh Muppet Movie and Muppet Treasure Island are kind of down there with
Mm-hmm.
Simple Plan, Evil Dead 2, like kind of at the end of the list.
Mm-hmm.
And then Muppets Most Wanted I actually put last.
Yeah.
But last is sort of relevant when you get down to that part. I wasn't really
Sure.
giving
Not
those a
thinking
ton of
very
weight.
carefully about all of those down there.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right.
Yeah, once
So,
you get past the Muppet Movie, they're sort of ranked, but
mhm.
not really. So
Okay, well, so as we already said, midway through this process, this was kind of a time-consuming, getting things in order. But I feel like it was good to kind of just review what we've talked about so far, and we, along the way, decided that we're going to be talking more about Paul Verhoeven next time, and we've already certainly talked about Starship Troopers, but we'll also be discussing RoboCop and Total Recall, and so. With that said, between now and then, everybody, watch good movies.
yeah, watch good movies.